Good job, Shauna. You're now more skilled than I am at Zoom. How's that? Hey everybody. It's good to see you. I've been on 2 back-to-back vacations. I went with Danielle and Francine for a couple of days up to Woodland Park, Colorado, where we did some hiking and some kayaking. And then I came back here last Wednesday night, Thursday morning, left with Ron for a week of vacation in Santa Fe, and we just got back yesterday afternoon. So I feel out of practice. I mean, I was even like, where is my book? How do I open my book? Because it was on my Kindle, all that. I feel very out of practice. It's funny how just a couple of weeks can make it seem like, an eternity. But here I am, and I'm sure I'll get back into the groove in no time at all. We are starting on number 296. And I will read from the 7 Steps to Awakening. Actually, I want to say something first. Today I had to go to the bank to get some money. It's about a half-hour drive to the bank. So in the half hour that I was driving, I was listening on the radio to Rhoda. And then I went into the bank and I came out about 20 minutes after the next hour, and Anne was in her teaching. But it's only half an hour back. And so she still had about 10 more minutes of teaching to do. And so I was just driving in circles in my neighborhood listening to her until she was done. I didn't want to turn off the car and come in and miss anything. But what I want to say is that their teachings were just so good today. I mean, I have an incredible, deep respect for where they are on their journey now and how they're looking. I was just enthralled, or else I wouldn't have driven around my neighborhood in circles to listen to the rest of the teaching. I see Rhoda. I don't know if Anne's around, and I think Anne had to take the ladies to get their hair done, so she's probably not around. But really, just very, very, very good work. I could also tell, I think, I surmised this. I could have surmised wrong. I think Anne probably was in the Releasing the I Am Bad Belief retreat last week, because it sounded like that information was very fresh in her ear. Yeah. And it sounds to me like, was it Christy and Jacqueline that taught that? It sounds to me like they must have done an excellent job based on Anne and what Anne was sharing and how she was sharing. So, I was just so impressed with all of you all this morning. I just wanted to say that. So I know it's not the fun part of the awakening process, but it's a very important part, and it takes great sincerity and great willingness, and you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I heard you wrote it like, I can't believe I'm going to, my mind is saying, don't share this again, don't share, and that you did it anyway. I mean, that alone is brilliant. It's just brilliant. I was in love with everything I heard this morning. So I wanted to say that. All right. So I'm moving now into the 7 Steps to Awakening. Shows how long I've been gone. Couldn't even remember the name of the book. And we're going to number 296. And I do remember this is Nisargadatta Maharaj. You are neither the body nor in the body. There is no such thing as body. You have grievously misunderstood yourself. To understand rightly, investigate. You are neither the body nor in the body. There is no such thing as body. You have grievously misunderstood yourself. To understand rightly, investigate. So I think I want to go right straight to Out of the Stillness. I could talk about this, but I feel like going right straight to Out of the Stillness. So let's do that. So out of the stillness, what am I? It's the first question that I ask. What am I? I am identified with this body. I point with my finger at this body when I say I. But does this identification mean I am this body is true? Do I know for a fact it is true? Or could it be an assumption? Could there be existence beyond the body that is I? I am identified with this personality mind, which seems to know things and remember things from this lifetime experience. I identify with this personality mind memory as me. But does this identification, I am this personality, but does this identification, I think I have a typo here. I think it should say, but does this identification, I am this personality, mind memory is true? I think it should, but does this mean that the identification, I am this personality, mind memory is true? Do I know for a fact it is true, or could it be an assumption? Could there be existence beyond this personality, mind, memory that is I? Some say mind or soul exists beyond personality memory through a process called reincarnation. This mind, soul carries imprints or karma with it from one lifetime to another. Some say I am the individual mind, soul that reincarnates. Is it true that I am the individual mind, soul that travels from one personality body experience to another? How would I know if that is what I am or if I am something else? What fact can I look at in my present experience and say, I know I am that? If there is a fact present now that I know I am, is there a reason for identifying with anything further like the idea, I am mind, soul that reincarnates? Isn't that adding on to something that is simply known? So, talking about this, I feel like starting with this last identification and working backwards. So the last identification was I am a mind soul. Mind soul being hyphenated, so it's kind of one thing. In this particular inquiry, I talked about reincarnation, but reincarnation wasn't my first belief in this lifetime. The first belief that I remember in this lifetime was being saved by Jesus, and then you go to heaven, right? That's what the mind soul does. It goes to heaven. Or I think because I was Southern Baptist first, I think there's probably also there was definitely that possibility, I know there was, that the mind soul could go to hell, right? So you had these two things that the mind soul could possibly do: go to heaven or go to hell. And then my next religious experience and set of beliefs was I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. One thing I really liked about Jehovah's Witnesses was they do not believe in hell. So that crossed that possibility out. I didn't have to worry about an eternal hell anymore. So there was no mind soul going to hell. The possibility for most of us, there were 144,000 people that would go to heaven. But the average bear, most of us, what would happen is when our natural death time came, we would die. But at the end of the war between Satan and God, known as Armageddon, at the end of that war, once God won, we would be resurrected. And then there was supposed to be 1,000 years, another test with Satan. And then after that, we would live an eternal life on earth, the paradise earth that God originally intended before Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the tree, right? Going back to God's original plan. Whew, that was a lot of words. But that's what I believed next, right? After I believed in heaven and hell, I believed in the possibility, this would really be mind, soul, body, because it was a body life, the possibility that you would die but then like Jesus, you would be resurrected and you would live forever in this same body, but I guess it would never ever age, in this same body on earth forever, on a paradise earth forever. And then after that, I got into, what I just call spirituality, for lack of a better word, and started learning about reincarnation and started having a belief in reincarnation. Now, the reason I told you all of that is notice how the belief changed, right? Anything that can change is not truth, right? So that's basically what I'm saying to myself in this inquiry is, why would I believe a story about a mind soul? Everybody who believes in whatever they believe in after death believes it, right? So why, if I'm searching for truth, and when my spiritual path really started consciously, when my spiritual path really started, that was what I asked for, was truth. In fact, I even said, I don't care what it is. I just want to know the truth, right? I just don't want to be fooled anymore by all these beliefs. I wouldn't have had the language then to say that. I don't want to be fooled anymore by all of these beliefs. I really didn't even have the understanding yet that beliefs were in the way of realizing truth. But I wanted to know the truth. I didn't want to believe something that wasn't true and base my life on something that wasn't true. I didn't want to do that. So isn't that what we're doing when we say, oh, you're going to go to heaven. Oh, you're going to go to hell. Oh, there's no such thing as heaven. Oh, you reincarnate. Oh, there's this long tunnel, and how many of y'all have genuinely know that to be a truth? And how many of you just believing what you've read, been told, was raised with, right? So to me, just dropping that idea, just dropping all of that stuff that I can clearly identify as belief, sounds smart, right? Just drop it all. There's a song that I have in my playlist. I can't remember the name of the song or the person who sings it. But maybe someday maybe if we have a pause later, I'll go look it up or something. But what I love about the song is she's basically, what she's saying in the song is, everybody's talking about, where you go when you die. And she's like, that's not important to me, right? Why would that be important to me? I just want to be right here, right? This is basically what the song is saying. It's like a bluegrass song. So if anybody thinks they know that song, type it in. But anyway, so the first thing, again, I'm starting at the end, but the first thing starting at the end is like, let's just drop this idea about a mind soul living forever, because that's obviously just belief. So then the next thing I look at, going backwards, is this personality mind. This is a little more interesting to me to look at. This personality mind that seems to be Regina, seems to be uniquely Regina, with my memories of my childhood and my teenage years and my years in the Air Force, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So I've spent a lot of time looking at that. And I don't remember the order in which that unraveled. It did unravel like a piece at a time. I don't remember the order of how that identification unraveled. But one significant unraveling that I really remember is, I started to notice this both about myself and others, if you'll pardon the language. In other words, I was noticing it everywhere. I noticed that when the personality was with Jasmine, my daughter, the personality acted in a certain way, like a very certain way. But when Danielle walked into the room, the personality changed a little bit. And if Ron walked into the room, it changed again. And if Danielle and Jasmine left the room and it was just now Regina and Ron, it changed again. And this wasn't a me putting on a fakeness, trying to act. This was just occurring. And to this day, when I see Danielle every Monday night. Oh, I'm not every Monday night, because like sometimes I'm in Santa Fe, like this last Monday or whatever, but you know what I mean? As a general rule, if there's nothing else going on, I see Danielle every Monday night. And she has her own Regina. Like this Regina shows up around Danielle. Nobody else will ever know that, because once you walk in the room, Regina changes. You will never know Danielle's Regina. And I've also noticed with Jacqueline, there's just like this very, very soft. I think the softest Regina there is the one Jacqueline sees. Isn't that funny? Very soft person shows up. But what I started noticing was I wasn't doing this. I wasn't behaving one way with Danielle and one way with Jacqueline. It was just happening. And I started to realize, it's really what Thich Nhat Hanh called interdependent co-arising. I started to realize that as these personality energies get together, they morph. They just become, there really is such a thing as a Danielle Regina that shows up. Both, I'm sure she's different with me too, right? There's like this Danielle Regina thing, which is different than the Danielle Jasmine Regina thing, which is different from the Danielle Jasmine Jacqueline Regina thing. Like they're all just happening. And as I really observe this, and again, not only in myself, but in others, I can see how Jasmine is with just me and her, and then how she changes when Danielle walks in the room as well, right? Etc. I started realizing the personality isn't a thing. It's not a thing you can identify with. It's an arising, right? And it's always changing. And to identify with it is just a thought. I mean, literally just a thought. You can't identify with this changing, morphing, arising thing that has nothing to do with you. Also, the memory as a part of this, identifying with who was I talking to last week? If there's somebody here that I was talking to last week, feel free to raise your hand, because you'll probably remember this. It might have been you, Shauna. Maybe it was the week before last or something, but it was Shauna. Okay, I'll tell my secret. I was telling Shauna a secret, but now that I've gotten this far into it, I'm gonna have to go further. A few weeks ago, we were celebrating Awakening Together's 10-year anniversary, and they did this panel thing where we all came in and we talked about the beginning of Awakening Together. And I was hiking with Shauna a few days later, and I told her it was so funny to me because everybody remembered things differently. Because like what I distinctly remember was the core values just coming suddenly, standing in the kitchen with Danielle, and I had to grab a napkin and write them down. But like, if you go listen to that, Dove will tell you, we went on a 3-day retreat in Canyon City to come up with the core values. Actually, what we came up with at that retreat was the Constitution, which did have the core values inserted into them, of course. But, and like, Nikki commented about how we were on retreat in Santa Barbara when I first told her that I was going to start a church. Well, Santa Barbara is where we had the first Awakening Together retreat. We already had our church. The guidance I got in Santa Barbara was to start the retreat house. But I was laughing with Sonia, but whoever that girl is there with the blonde hair and the glasses, I was laughing with her, Shauna, saying, look how memories are. Memories aren't things either. There's nothing actual about memories. Right? I mean, they're a little bit maybe based in truth. You read these stories or you see these movies that say based on truth. they're a little bit based on something that happened, but there's so much imagination and fogginess and misperception and, everything else thrown in. How could you identify with that and say, that's me? right? It's not even real. You know, you're thinking you were in Canyon City writing core values when that never even happened, you know? So how can you identify with memories? And I was just joking with Shauna about this while we were hiking, but obviously that's not the first time I noticed that. You know, I would notice I would get together with my brother and we would talk about something that happened in our childhood, and our memory of it is so different. You know, I can talk to Ron and we'll talk about something that happened in our past, and our memory of it is so different. You know, who knows what's true, right? Who knows what's true? So how can that be me? A memory can't be me. A personality can't be me. You know, just by observing these things, the identification with that, whatever that is, to me, it's nothing now. But identifying with these figments, these appearances, these imaginations, these changing things as me makes no sense. Right? It just makes no sense. So the next thing that I look at going up, now this one is a little more present, meaning present in my experience. The next one, if we're working our way backwards, says, I am identified with this body. Well, you know, in my case, that might be both true and not true. In other words, the unraveling may be in progress, but not completely done, if it's both true and not true. At one time, I was totally identified with this body and hated it too, right? Because it wasn't the body I wanted it to be. I have hated this body since I was 18 years old, since one little innocent comment my mom made that she didn't mean to make. She was just hating herself and hoping I would turn out different than her, so I would be as awful as her, and not being aware of all this, right? And then one day she noticed a similarity in my body and hers, and she went, oh no, you know, you're going to have cellulite like me. And that's when, because I never even thought about, I mean, I had a body, but I never thought about a body, believe it or not, until that time, age 18. And then suddenly, in a moment, it became the number one symbol of my unworthiness. The number one symbol of, I will never, ever, ever be as good as anyone else. I will always be less than. I will always be disgusting. I always have to hide. I can't let anybody see the real me, which meant the body. Right? And I spent most of my life in that state of mind. So I was very identified with the body. It was not only me, it was the symbol of my unworthiness. Well, all of that has changed. I mean, now, you know, when I look at the body, I mean, obviously, you know, I was a lot prettier at age 18 than I am now. Do y'all trust that fact? We all were, right? So I'm a lot uglier now. And you know, that just doesn't bother me at all. Right? Like I, you know, the legs walk. That's what, you know, that's good. Not everybody's legs do. I'm really lucky, you know. They're strong. They, you know, everything is fine. I mean, it's just a body. It's just a body rather than a me. You see what I mean? It's just a body and it works fine, and I'm happy with it and I enjoy it. Rhoda, I heard you saying this morning that you you know, don't exercise. I can't remember the exact word you said, you know, you avoid it, whatever you said. I'm kind of the opposite, because I love the way the body feels when it's exercising. You know, I just love that feeling. You know, just like I love chocolate. There's really no difference. I love both. I love chocolate and I love the way the body feels when it's exercising. Those are probably my top two things that I love as far as you know, habitual daily things. I can't imagine a day unless the weather is just horrible. But I mean, it's so seldom that I have a day when I don't exercise, right? Because I don't love the feeling of not exercising. I love the feeling of exercising. But when I look at that, it's so different. I used to exercise so that I wouldn't be the most horrible person on the planet. Now I exercise just because I love the feeling of exercising. End of story, right? I love it. I love walking. I love working out in my gym. I'm even thinking about joining the gym, even though I have a gym, because they have a swimming pool and I don't. And I love swimming, right? So it's different because it's not me in the way that it was. It's more like an experiential benefit that I get to enjoy. That's more how I experience it now. But at the same time, and we talked about this, maybe in my last teaching, maybe a couple of teachings ago, what I notice, and I notice it a lot, so I think it might be up for healing because I just notice it so much. I notice that there's this fear of not being safe that comes up in certain circumstances. Like I said, when I'm out in the nighttime with my dog and she alerts and I think, uh-oh, there could be a bear over there. And by the way, that bear I hear turned our dumpster over again. So there really could be a bear over there. Like the fear rushes up, or when I'm with someone who's driving in ways that seem like, oh my God, we could get killed around the next corner, the fear comes up. But what's also funny, so I don't walk around feeling fear all the time is the point. Certain circumstances it comes up. But what's also funny is, actually, I'm going to retract my last sentence. I don't consciously walk around feeling fear all the time, because what I really feel is happy. But I noticed something this week that I want to share with you all. I was in Santa Fe and walking my dog in Santa Fe. Now, when I walk my dog around Pueblo West, I kind of have to keep an eye out for rattlesnakes because they are here. When I'm walking my dog in La Vida, I kind of have to keep my eye out for other dogs not on a leash because they are there. And when I walk my dog at night, I have to kind of listen for a bear or possibly a mountain lion because they are there. So I'm kind of aware is what I call it. Aware of these things and trying not to step into trouble. In Santa Fe, I didn't have to do any of that. We were right in downtown Santa Fe. There are no rattlesnakes. There are no bears. There are no dogs that are not on leashes. And even the homeless people are polite and nice and friendly. And, you have nice chats with them. And I noticed not having to be on alert. I noticed it. It's like, oh my God. I mean, I told Ron, I said, I could live here forever. I just feel so safe. But if I feel safe there, doesn't that mean that to some degree I'm feeling unsafe in these other environments? Right? So that stood out to me. Yeah, it stood out to me that there is still this attachment to the body. I mean, it is true. I am in environments where something could happen, like it's not pure imagination, right? But I'm not completely relaxed, or I wouldn't have noticed the difference walking my dog in Santa Fe, downtown Santa Fe, right? I wouldn't have noticed the difference. So I don't have anything else to say about that, except that there's still some body identification. There has to be. There has to be. And all I do with that, I mean, is look at it, acknowledge it, and recognize it doesn't have to be like, there doesn't have to be body identification. It's not necessary. Just like it's not necessary to be identified with the personality, or it's not necessary to believe I know what happens after death, right? So it's just another level, as far as I am aware, of moving forward in this awakening process. Now, let me get a drink of water, and then we'll go back to the end and look at the next step. Oops, I see Len has his hand up. Go ahead, Len.
Yeah, so just pondering that last bit of what you said, and yet, without there being fear, there's still the care of the body. You breathe air, you eat food, and so you're vigilant, I think, as just a part of the livingness of a spirit living here, let's say, needs to have that if it's going to continue. And it's not like a thought out process. It's something that arises in the moment, like when your dog made a noise and immediately there was a perking up. It's a subtle difference, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
how.
no, I want to put a great big maybe on that, because that has crossed my mind too, Len.
Yeah.
Right? That's crossed my mind too. But the reason I want to put a great big maybe on that is because I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's the honest answer. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I want to continue, because I'm not unhappy. Like, I don't feel, even though I felt really, really safe in Santa Fe. See, that was what was so funny, was I noticed how safe I felt. I don't think there would have been a contrast if there wasn't still some identification with the body. I think that there's more. I think I call it aware. I call it alert. I call it cautious. I call it cautious, but I think there's actually still some fear there too. And I think I'm just being as honest as I can be about my experience.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the reason there's still fear there too is because there's still identification with the body. But how can I know what I don't know? How can I know, for example, what Ramana Maharshi felt, right? He didn't appear to feel this way, but that's looking at an appearance, right? But it seems to me that it's something I should pay attention to, just like I paid attention to the I am bad belief until it died. It just feels that way. It feels off to me.
Yes, I can see how just being present with that would allow whatever needs to work out forward would do that, as opposed to, say, completely ignoring it.
Yeah, for example, let me give you an example of something that I think is different. It feels different. I am not nervous under most circumstances to cross a street. I just look both ways, wait until it's safe, and I go. But there is no that same feeling of, is there an unleashed dog? It's not the same. It's not the same. I cross a street in complete peace, still cautious, but there isn't a little nervousness or anxiousness underneath, where looking for a dog that is off leash. And the reason that's that way is because my dog doesn't get along with other dogs, right? I didn't used to feel that way when I had a different dog who got along with every dog she ever met. But, just this knowing there's this possibility that if there's an even worse, in La Vida, there often seems to be two big dogs off leash that run around together. I don't know why they run around in twos. So if those two dogs come into contact with my one dog, she may start the fight, but they may finish it, right? So there's an anxiousness there, not just a cautiousness.
Yeah, protectiveness kind of too.
Yeah. And funny thing is, even when they're little dogs, I'm still trying to keep my dog away, because it's not like I'm trying to keep my dog from getting hurt. I'm trying to keep any dog from getting hurt. But there's an anxiousness there. So that's what feels off to me. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we should lose our reasonable caution. Like, I would always recommend looking both ways before you cross the street. I always recommend stopping at stop signs and stoplights, and driving at a reasonable speed on these mountainous roads. But it's that anxiousness that feels very, 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 very subtle. But I know it's there, where I wouldn't have felt so safe in Santa Fe.
Very subtle. Yeah.
Very subtle. Because I am happy, and the people who know me will tell you that. They see it. I think it shines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but thanks for bringing it up, because I think it's great to look at this. I mean, it's great for me that you're making me look at it more. That's what I mean.
My pleasure.
Yeah. When I go back to number 296 and out of the stillness, and I jump to the end of the contemplation, the very last paragraph. It says, is it true that I am the individual mind, soul? We already talked about this part, so I'm just reading to get to where I want to get. Is it true that I am the individual mind, soul that travels from one personality body experience to another? How would I know if that is what I am or if I am something else? And then I kind of switch, and this part I think is really important. What fact can I look at in my present experience and say, I know I am that? If there is a fact present now that I know I am, is there a reason for identifying with anything further? So what I think is going on here, like I said, how can I know? I know things in the rearview mirror much better than things that are still to come. But if I think what is going on here is that my attachment to the body, that subconscious attachment to the body, is up for healing or release or break or whatever you want to call it, there's two things I know to do with that. And by the way, this wouldn't matter what's up for you, right? It could be that you can see that this victim thing keeps happening over and over again, or the I am bad belief, or, abandonment, or, pick something, right? It doesn't matter what's up for you. You'll keep seeing it if it's up for you. It'll keep appearing, right? It's really saying, heal me. That's why it keeps appearing. Heal me. It wants to be healed, right? It's an invitation. But if I think this attachment to the body is what's up for me, there's two things I want to do with it. One, I've already talked about. I want to notice it for what it is. Anne talked about this really well this morning when she was telling the story about, judging her mom for telling a story. And then she started going into her own root cause inquiry. But what she was noticing was that she was judging her mom as wanting to be smart enough to know an idiot when she sees one. And then Anne, as she was going into her self-inquiry, Anne was noticing she felt that way too, that she was smart enough to notice her mom being an idiot when she was and she knows it's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? And then she went deeper and deeper into that. She didn't stop there. She went deeper and deeper. She got down to, it is the I am bad belief. And I remember one of the things she saw was it was saying things like faker, 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 your shuts are faker. But, it is the I am bad belief. And then she comes back out of the depths of her soul and looks at the story. And she says, the I am bad belief was hiding in that story, and my judgment of my mom, and in me wanting to get up and walk away and all of that. Okay, so here's what you got to do. You can't let the actual problem hide in a story. Or, you can't say, well, it's my mom being all judgy, right? If you stay with the projection, it doesn't heal. You have to recognize it for what it is. So you have to realize, and you may have to do self-inquiry before you can realize it honestly, or do a root cause inquiry before you can realize it honestly. And both Rhoda and Anne did excellent examples today. And if you didn't hear them, go listen to both their audios whenever they're posted, because they both did excellent examples and they did it slightly differently. So it's good to listen to both. But what you want to do when you see it is you want to see it, say, that is the I am bad belief, just like Anne did. Or in my case, that is attachment to the body. Or that is my belief in victimhood. Or the way inner wisdom taught this to me was you call it by its name. You don't let it hide as something else. It's not she's being an idiot. That's the hiding, right? It's, okay, that's my I am bad belief. This is what I'm experiencing here, right? This is my attachment to the body. That's what I'm experiencing here. And you just keep calling it by its name. You don't do anything else. You just recognize it for what it really is, right? It's like if you imagine there's an illusionist, we usually call this illusionist the ego. There's this illusionist trying to distract you away from the real problem because your awareness is healing and it's trying to get you to look at something else. You don't want to allow the illusionist to do that. You want to keep your eye on the real problem. That's it. Just there it is again. There it is again. Right? That's it again. Bring awareness to it is how we say that in simple language. But that's what it is. Bring awareness to it. So that's the first thing you have to do. You bring the light, put the light on the illusion and recognize it as the illusion that it is. But the other thing that you have to do is you have to keep looking at the truth. One eye is looking at the false, noticing that the false is the false. It's that false thing again, that false I am bad, that false attachment to that's what this is. The other eye is looking at what I really am and recognizing that is what I am. And Anne did this well in her teaching today too. Recognizing that is what I am. So what I want to do is I want to move, you could say move from root cause inquiry to self-inquiry. What am I? What do I absolutely know in this very moment, not in my imagination, not in what somebody told me, right? What can I absolutely look at and verify that it's me? You know, whatever word you want to put on it, right? That it's me, the unchanging, always constant, what I am, me, that me, right? And to whatever degree, I remember Inner Wisdom told me this once, to whatever degree you recognize that and you know you recognize that, that's perfect. That degree of recognizing it may deepen. It may shift, right? You may get to recognize it in deeper and deeper ways. But to whatever degree you can look at something, which is not a something, but you guys understand language, to look at something and recognize that is changeless I. And I know that is changeless I. That is helpful. So it's really kind of doing two things. It's seeing the false as false and the true as true. Those are the two sides of the coin that heals, right? You recognize the false as false, but not some, not some distraction false, the real false. The real false is that I believe I'm the lowest scum on the planet. That's the real false, right? It's like as true as you can get about the false, right? And then you find the truth to the degree that you can genuinely verify it and you recognize it. And you just keep doing those two things. Recognize the false is false and the true is true. And that's what heals. You don't do anything else. You don't undo the I am bad belief. It just gets undone through you recognizing the false is false and recognizing the true is true. And then one day, it's just not there anymore. And you kind of start to notice the difference. You know, the way I remember it, and you guys know how memories are, they can be completely wrong. But the way I remember it was like after the I am bad belief died, and I didn't even notice that the event when it died until years later. Then I could look back and say, wow, it never came up again after that. That's the event when it died. But it wasn't like there were firecrackers or anything that told me it's dead, it's dead. You know, there was nobody dancing around singing, what's that song at the end of Wizard of Oz? Ding dong, the witch is dead. Nobody was doing that, right? It just never came back again. And eventually I'm like, I think that's when it died because I never saw it after that. That was the rejection story, for those of you who know the rejection story. But what I started to notice was that these thoughts would appear, the same thoughts that had always appeared, like, you're a stupid butthead or whatever. And I would just laugh at them. I didn't used to laugh at them. I used to go, oh my God, I'm a stupid butthead. I totally swallow them, roll around in them. And so it's not like the thoughts even stopped coming. I just stopped believing them, and it just happened. It just happened. So maybe someday, and we don't know till it happens, maybe someday there will be a bear, and my attention will know exactly what I need to do in that moment. And I'll just do it, whatever it is, without the anxiousness. Right? Maybe. Like I said, everything's a maybe. But I feel like bringing that same healing attention to this that I've brought to other things that have been healed. Right? It feels like the right thing to do. While we're on the subject, I know you guys know this, but sometimes you can't hear things enough. There are two things. It's really the same thing, pointing in different directions. There are two things that will not help you to heal. In fact, they will help you to not heal. That's blaming someone or something else for your experience. And the other is blaming yourself or condemning yourself for still having this experience. Neither one of those has any value whatsoever to healing. Did you guys hear that? Yeah. I honestly believe that one reason that these things healed in me as fast as they did, and sometimes the word fast is like 5 years, but you look back on it and you go, wow, that was fast. I honestly believe the reason some of these things healed so fast in me is that somewhere along the way, and I think actually you guys just covered it like last week. I think it was a miracle. You just covered it last week in early teachings when I got that message from Holy Spirit that told me you can't blame and heal. And when I heard that from within, I accepted that fully, instantly. I quit blaming and I quit condemning myself for where I was at. I just stopped doing that because I really got it that wasn't helpful, So I worked on the I am bad belief for a very long time. I think it was actually 4 years, but it felt like for friggin' ever when I was doing it. But I didn't put myself down for seeing it again and again and again. Right? So watch the blame thing, whether you're blaming out or blaming in, condemnation, whether you're condemning out or condemning in. That is a huge obstacle. You don't have to, you don't have to, you can do whatever the heck you want. But what I'm just speaking with passion here. So excuse the passionate language. You have to accept where you are and be okay with it. That's the best attitude. And just move forward in acceptance of where you are. Acceptance is always better than judgment, right? All right, Patricia.
Yes, hi. I so many forgiveness that I have done for certain things, and I noticed that they just kept going on and on and on, and no healing until I understood that I kept and kept and kept judging myself for having these experiences. And I think it takes until it dawned on me that I was not loving myself like this. And it takes the courage to really, really love myself, and not, as you said, not to keep on blaming myself for the same mistakes. And I guess that's when healing can happen. I just like 3 days ago had a very, very, very strong experience where I seemed to lost all of my spiritual knowledge and practice, and just went back to my old self. I just couldn't believe this. I'm still now. I said, what happened to me? I was like possessed. I blew it. I forgot everything. It's like I went back to the beginning, and I'm still astonished of what happened to me. And I still feel it in my heart, that the guilt that you've done a disservice to you, to yourself, to God. Wow.
Yeah. So that's the part that you want to try and, carve out. And when I say carve out, I really mean rest, accept, and trust with the guilt without, do your best not to believe it, but allow it to be there. That's how you carve it out. You don't repress it. Astonished was actually by itself a very good word. It's okay to be astonished, like, wow, I can't believe that happened. How did that happen? Maybe do a root cause inquiry, right? Astonished is fine, but it's the self-judgment that's not fine. That's not helpful, is what I mean. Like you somehow did something wrong. I can tell you from my experience, and again, you never know if we have the same experiences or different experiences, probably a combination of both. But there were times when I would have, long periods of peace and joy and happiness. And, you feel like, you're on top of everything. And then something would happen, and sometimes even something little. And like this monster would just come roaring out of me. Like I remember one time, I don't remember whether Jasmine was the only one without a sweatshirt on, complaining that it was too cold, or if she was the only one with a sweatshirt on, complaining that it was too hot. I don't remember which way it went, but she was dressed differently than everybody else in the car and complaining about the temperature. And all of a sudden, just like without any warning, this, well, then take off your damn sweatshirt came out of me. Like, I was astonished. I hadn't seen anything like that in months. Astonished is one thing, but I didn't judge myself. I was just like, wow, and then I immediately apologized to her, but no self-judgment. It was like, I looked at it as a burp, like I burped, there was still some gas in there and it burped. I mean, it's really helpful not to judge yourself no matter what you do. And that takes practice too. And then of course you have to not judge yourself for judging, right? You stop wherever you can stop that process of judgment. But judgment, blame, condemnation, these things they never are helpful. They're always more harmful. It's like Nisargadatta said, I'm trying to remember his quote. He said, some things purify the mind, and some things, can anybody remember that exact word he used? The opposite of purify, like poison. He might have said poison. I don't remember. I know he said purify. Some things purify the mind, some things poison. I don't think he said poison, but that's the gist of it. Poison the mind. And he really meant things like judging yourself. Right? That's just poison, right? It's not helpful. No matter what you do, no matter how badly you behave in that moment, it's better to be astonished, surprised, curious. Let me look at what happened. Let's do a root cause inquiry, right? All those things are okay. I heard Sinus say, I think it was in Sunday's Tao teaching, but I'm not sure because I listened to so many audios. I heard Sinus say that I once told her that mistakes are just opportunities for learning. Adopt that attitude. Don't adopt the attitude that you won't ever make a mistake, because that's just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Right? Adopt the attitude that every mistake is an opportunity to learn something.
I
That
will,
makes,
yes. Thank you.
that makes every mistake a growth opportunity, right?
Of course,
And
yes.
so is there more you want to say, Patricia?
No, the thing is that when I see it in my mind, like for me, it was so big. I felt like I betrayed everything, love, and I couldn't believe I didn't want to be in myself.
Well, that's okay. To some degree. As long as you see that and don't fully believe that. You see that's what's going on with the mind and the body, but you stay watching that, being aware of that. That's actually how the belief in guilt healed in me, was an experience very similar to that. I had those exact feelings that I had betrayed God. I felt so bad with guilt that I wanted to not only die, I wanted to die, but I wanted to not only die, I wanted to be erased from everyone's memory. I didn't want them to ever even remember that I existed. That's how awful I thought I was. But at the same time, I always say there was this one little cell of sanity behind my ear, which I later learned was some nerve from the heart. But there was this one little cell of sanity behind the ear that was reminding me, this is healing, just watch it. Don't believe it. This is healing, just watch it. Don't believe it. And even though my whole body and mind was screaming how guilty I was, I listened to that little cell. And that's when the belief in guilt died in me. Not only my guilt, but your guilt and everybody else's guilt, just the belief in guilt itself. So some of these experiences that seem like the worst, like, oh my God, I just want to die, right? If you watch those experiences from the right place, that's when the healing happens. It's just like the saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. So don't be afraid of your worst experiences. Just don't go all the way into them. And, like I said, if it was just one little cell I was listening to, you could say that I was 99.99% in it. But that 0.01% that wasn't in it was enough. Nobody's asking for your perfection, whatever this perfection thing is that we think. But just don't totally believe that you're the biggest loser in the whole friggin' world. Don't go there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that wasn't just for you. I saw a lot of people listening. So with that, I think we are out of time for today. So I have every intention of being here next week. So hopefully I'll see you then, and I'll hear many of you on audios between now and then. Okay. Bye.